Welcome to episode 4 of the Modern Mindspaces Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the biggest things that I think cause overspending. I've got some facts to back this up. I've got some relative theories to back this up, and I just got some common sense stuff to back this up. And we're just going to talk about it a little bit. And I'm going to kind of just give an overview of everything that causes this so that hopefully you're all aware of what actually causes this. And then later on, I'm thinking in the next 5 episodes, I'm going to make a video about how to kind of get rid of those overspending habits, and just kind of how to fix the stress factor that is money. Because in my opinion and in my personal experience, money causes more stress than basically anything else, especially because it's connected to so many other sources of stress that I didn't talk about as one of the main 3 stress factors, because I don't think it causes as much stress as the main 3. For anybody who hasn't seen any of our previous episodes, those 3 main stress factors are politics, social media, and now today's episode, money. But these other smaller versions of stress, a lot of them are heavily connected to money, as you'll see in this episode. And I'll touch up on them a little bit as we get to them. But let's stick to the main topic of the video, the stress factor of money, and specifically what causes overspending. So my little theory for overspending is this thing called the consumption loop. It's just kind of what I call it. And it's this 5-step process of, 1, having financial insecurities. This can just come from, I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. And the next week, I don't get paid until next week, Friday, and I need it this week. I don't know how I'm going to get that money. It could come from having to pull money out of your savings because, let's say, some pipes in your house broke and they costed a lot more money to fix than you expected and a lot more money than you have. So let's say you even went into debt, or you had to pull money from your savings, or maybe you had an investment account and you had to pull money from there. And now all of a sudden you're in a much worse financial position and you don't know how to pay for anything that you have to pay for in your life. This causes a very large amount of financial stress. And that is step 2. So from financial insecurity, we go to financial stress. And also, kind of that idea of financial insecurity, there was a study done by the National University of Science and Technology. The study is called Stressors, Stress, and Impulse Buying Behavior. It kind of talks about that idea of financial insecurity a little bit, but this leads into financial stress. This is terrible. It's so bad for your health. This constant stressing, how am I going to pay for things? How am I going to save any money? I want to retire one day, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck. So many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, by the way. Even when you get over the 6-figure income, I believe, and I'll write down the actual percentage on the screen or I'll leave an info card, but I believe it's over 50% of Americans, even after reaching 6-figure income, so $100,000 a year, they reach this and they still are living paycheck to paycheck. That's absurd that many people can still be living the same lifestyle as somebody who makes $30,000 or less a year. To be making 3 to 5 times that amount of money and being in the exact same financial position shows that it's not really a question of how much money you're making, but more about how you spend your money, the places that you spend your money, and where you put your money. If you keep all of it in your checkings account, yeah, you're going to live paycheck to paycheck. But anyways, tangent over. That's financial stress in a nutshell. And this leads to I'm going to call this either comfort spending or retail therapy, because a study that I read, it's forgive me, but I'm forgetting the people who actually made the article, but I'll keep it linked below. But the name is The Psychology Behind Retail Therapy, so that's why we might call it that. I haven't really decided yet. You'll see in future episodes. But This is what happens as a result of financial stress. When you spend money to release the stress of not having enough money. It's so backwards. It's such a terrible mentality to have, but so many people have it and they don't even realize. I've fallen victim to this many times. I'll get out of work late at night and then I'll go to the gym, and I get out of the gym and I'm just like craving some sugary snack or something. So I'll go to the store and buy some soda or some candy or something. And there you go. I fell into comfort spending. I felt stressed. I felt sore after the gym. So as a result, I went to the store and bought things that were unhealthy for me and that I really didn't need to be spending my money on. And there you go. There goes like $5, $8 down the drain for no reason. And you're like, oh, $5 to $8, that's not a lot. But let's say you did this 2 to 3 times a week. That's $15 to $24 a week, which would be anywhere from $60 to just shy of $100 a month, which adds up. And then multiply that into years. It's a lot of money, actually. And that's just one thing. Lots of people have so many different instances of retail therapy that they can't even think of. Like, I don't know. And there's also FOMO, fear of missing out, buying the battle pass every month when it comes out in Fortnite or something, or whatever video game you play. That's comfort spending. And so then that oftentimes people will overspend because they don't realize how much money they're spending, and then they put themselves into debt. So that's number 4, debt. Debt is terrible, hands down. If we had to take one thing about the stress factor of money and say that this is what actually causes the stress, it's debt. It is 100% of the time debt. Debt is so terrifying. It's so bad. It can be good, but that's for like really smart people that know how money works really intensely. Not for the average person. I don't even know how it works that much, and I love learning about money. But debt is just, for most people, it's terrible. It is so bad for you. Avoid debt at all costs. And there's so many different ways that debt can be created, and we're going to get into those later in the video. But for now, I just want you to know that debt, in any way, if you don't know what you're doing, debt is bad for you. It is so bad for you. That APR, annual percentage rate, or bad interest, so instead of making money over time, you're losing money over time, is absolutely terrible. It butchers you. Stay out of debt. But debt causes so much stress. It keeps you up at night, and that causes even more insecurity, which is number 5, which then leads back into number 1 of financial insecurity. And this loop just continues of you spending more money than you know what to do with. And then you're in this terrible position where you're in so much debt and you have so much stress, and it's so terrible for your brain. And this is why I genuinely think that money is the absolute worst of the 3 stress factors. If we had to make a super stress factor, the biggest thing ever, it would be debt and money. Just overall, it's so bad for you. That would be the super stress factor if I ever wanted to make some sort of episode about that. So that's the consumption loop. Just to recap it real quick, we have financial insecurity, we have financial stress. So financial insecurity that leads into financial stress. We have comfort spending, we have debt, and then that leads to more insecurity, which restarts the loop, and it just keeps looping over time, and it snowballs. It's going to progressively get worse. You're going to progressively overload yourself into more debt, for all the gym bros. So it's terrible. Just always avoid it. And a good thing to kind of think about, and a good question that I want you to think about that kind of ties into the consumption loop, and specifically 2 and 3 of financial stress and comfort spending, is just how many things have you bought this year that have actually improved your life? Let's say that you just turned 16 and you bought a car. Obviously, that improves your life. Overall, that's a pretty good purchase. You bought a gym membership and you got into the gym. So, you're getting healthier, you're getting stronger. That's a great thing to spend your money on. And you bought some, let's say you bought some education. You took your education to the next level. Let's say you bought a digital course, or you bought a test to get a certification or something. You're learning new skills from this. You're increasing your human capital. This is a pretty good purchase. That's worth it. But that candy that you bought after the gym, or the battle pass, or whatever you ended up spending your money on, let's say you bought the premium version of what is a Snapchat premium, something like that. Those purchases are worthless and they are what comfort spending is. Maybe those extra clothes that you bought when you already have a full closet, why are you buying those? Just kind of think about that a little bit. But moving on to something that can put you in financial insecurity in the first place. So this is going to be part 2 of this video, is we have the pressure to look successful. When you live your life and you have all these external factors that I'm going to talk about in a second that are impacting your life and causing stress, they want to make you look successful. You want to look successful, right? You want to be able to fight off these external factors. So you're going to buy a nice blazer and you're going to buy a sports car and all this stuff that you can afford so that you look successful and people are like, wow, look at that guy. I want to be like him. Because obviously that's a feeling that we as people love. We love to feel like we are awesome. We love when people look up to us, when they see us as a role model. It's great for our brain. Some people might deny it, but those people usually have never been in that situation and they don't know how it actually feels. But it's an amazing feeling. It's a natural part of human nature. You're going to want it. And once you've tasted it, you're going to want it all the time. So that would be like a desire to outshine your peers, which is the first one. That desire to outshine people is so powerful. It's in everybody. It's that raw desire to compete, to succeed people, to just absolutely dominate at whatever you are that you're doing. This could be sports. This could be a business. This could be school. People want to dominate. They want to do great in life. They want to make everybody else look at them and be like, wow, I want to be like that guy. And that can also be brought into the world of money. When you spend a lot of money to have nice clothes, to have nice cars, to have a nice house, you spend a lot of money on your girlfriend and, you want a beautiful girlfriend or I guess it'd be a handsome boyfriend. So you spend money to be a good partner, all of this stuff. Some of this stuff is reasonable to spend money on, especially that last one, but it can be incredibly unhealthy over time and it causes so much stress. And it's all from this idea of wanting to look successful. And that's just the first one. Then we have your parents' expectations of you. This is huge. What a lot of people don't realize is your personality and your behaviors are so based upon who you were raised to be by your parents, or how you were raised by your parents, and who your parents are. Your parents have such an impact on like everything in your life. And a lot of people don't realize that, or they might even try to deny it. Like, oh, I don't need my parents. My parents didn't ever do nothing for me. They did. They did so much for you. So first off, be a little bit more respectful. And second off, they actually did stuff that might be negative. But I want you to know that your parents didn't mean to do that. It's just a result of human nature. And, people don't actually understand how the human brain works very well. And a lot of the stuff that they do can have negative impacts on you too. And it's important to be aware of that. So your parents' expectations of you, they want you to be successful. They want you to be a somebody. They want you to do good in school. All of those expectations can cause so much stress, once again. And it's financial stress because you want to spend money to look successful, to look like you accomplished what your parents expected of you. And then it leads you into this loop of, once again, overspending. What causes overspending? Your parents' expectations. And your parents' expectations, like I said, I was going to talk about these a little bit. It's a big part of stress that also fits into money. And it's a big, if I had to make an honorable mention of a stress factor, your parents' expectations, or just how you were raised in general, is one of them. It is a huge cause of stress. And the last one is social media. So we have your parents' expectations, your desire to outshine peers, and social media. So, social media, I talked about this in episode 3, our last episode. And social media, if you watched the last episode, you know that in general, social media is terrible for you. It also causes bad financial habits because it is one of the biggest causes of FOMO. As I said earlier, that's the fear of missing out. FOMO, FOMO. That is so prevalent on social media because you see all these other people driving fast cars, eating expensive food, wearing nice clothes, going out on expensive dates, living in exotic locations, going on big vacations. They cause that FOMO, and you want to be like that. That's what social media is. It's just everybody trying to outcompete each other. So that desire to outshine peers. It's the same thing. But anyways, social media causes so much of that thing. So you want to post cool videos of you and your girlfriend flying around on jet skis in the Bahamas. That looks so cool. I want people to think I'm that cool. So you spend way too much money to make that happen. Or just go to the Bahamas in general because they went to the Bahamas and it looks cool. And I want to be like those guys on social media. Yay. It's terrible and it causes overspending. So something to think about here is if nobody actually saw what you own, would you be buying the same things? Maybe, but probably not. And just think about that. Some of the things that you buy, you probably don't need to be buying. A great example is like White Monster. It's all over the internet right now. All of the guys in the gym are like drinking White Monster because it's just kind of been elected as the gym bro drink for some reason. But it's actually really bad for you. And I don't know why people drink it. But that's a pretty good example. A lot of people probably spend a lot of money on those, and there's not really any reason to be. If you can get caffeine from coffee and you don't have all those extra chemicals in there that are terrible for you. So just a thought. So trying to look successful is different from actually being successful. There's people that actually could become successful. And once you're making enough money that you're not living paycheck to paycheck, then two things can happen. You can start building financial independence, which is great, and I would try to do that if possible. And I want to make a bunch of episodes on financial independence actually, and what it is, how to get there, and what to do once you get there. But just to start, financial independence is basically when you finally have gotten your finances together a little bit and there's actually some money left in your bank account before your next paycheck, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of just that point where your money, you don't have that financial insecurity anymore. Some people define it as reaching retirement or getting to a point where you're starting to get towards retirement. There's a lot of different definitions for it, but I'm just going to kind of define it in this video as you aren't in debt anymore and you're kind of starting to build towards retirement. That's how I'm going to define it. If it's not, my bad. I'll correct it in the editing of this video. But that's how I'm going to define it. So you could, once you have some money left over because you fixed your overspending habits, which once again, in the next 5 episodes somewhere, I'm going to talk about that. Once you've fixed those overspending habits, then you might have some money left in your bank account. You could put this money into your savings account, or you could invest it into a brokerage account, or you could buy some assets that appreciate over time. Whatever, you start putting your money towards somewhere where it starts growing. That's great. But what you want to avoid is looking like you have financial independence while not having financial independence. And that's the next part of this video. So, what is looking like you are financially independent? Well, it's a lot like I talked about earlier. Buying nice cars, buying nice clothes, eating expensive food, going out to eat all the time. Just buying things that you don't need but look flashy. You want to avoid that. Are you chasing financial freedom, or are you chasing the idea of financial freedom, which makes actual financial freedom impossible? So why are you chasing it? Don't do that, okay? I'm going to talk about financial independence a lot more, but I just wanted to put it in here because once you get rid of overspending, you want to avoid trying to look like you're financially free. A lot of people call this, oh my gosh, my mind's blanking. A lot of people will call this lifestyle creep. That is terrible. You start making more money, so you start spending more money. No, when you start making more money, you should try to save some of your money, because in the long run, once your money starts making you more money, then you don't have to work anymore, or then you can finally start actually improving your life a little bit. It's not like you have to live at your current lifestyle forever, but it's generally smarter to save a few bucks than spend a few bucks to make your life just a tad bit better in the short term, because those couple of bucks that you save turn into a lot more bucks over time. And then your life gets a lot better all of a sudden, because then one of your stocks blows up and you've got more money than you know what to do with. And that isn't realistically what happens when you save money, but it can be, it's possible. And also, if you put your money in the S&P 500, generally you get 11% growth every year, or 8% after 3% inflation. We're going to talk about it in a second. But, just try to save more instead of making it look like you've been saving for 30 years, because you haven't. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about is what causes financial pressure. And there's a lot of it in modern life. So we're going to kind of talk about that for a second. There's 5 things. The first one is housing. Housing is such a scam, especially today. Actually buying a house for yourself, first off, it's nearly impossible. And second off, it's really hard to budget to keep your house. And it ruins your finances. Like everything else about your finances is just ruined once you buy a house. Uh, I heard from somebody one time that a good rule of thumb is to have your house, this is what everybody agrees is a good amount, is to have your housing cost about 25% of your income, 25% for the month. So overall, 25% of the money you make in a year goes towards the house that you live in. Whether that's renting, or that's your monthly payment on a house after you put a down payment down, which is usually a massive chunk of money, more money than most people can reasonably afford. So that 25%, that means that you would work a whole week just to pay for your housing, which is absurd. You work for a whole week just to have somewhere to sleep. That's so crazy. And if you actually buy a house instead of renting, like I said, there's usually a massive down payment, and that can just screw up your finances for a long time. Housing causes so much financial pressure, and everybody always says you need to move out, you need to get your own place, you need to do all of this stuff. Don't do that until you can afford it. Don't put yourself in debt just to sleep somewhere when maybe you already had something set up where you could live for free, like with your parents or something. I know it's kind of embarrassing to live with your parents, especially after you turn 18, maybe you graduate high school, maybe even graduate college and you're still living with your parents. Like, yeah, it's probably a good idea to get your own place, but as long as you aren't just dead weight around the house and you're actually kind of helping, talk to your parents. Maybe you can live with them for a few years, and then you don't have those massive payments right off the bat, because it cripples a lot of people and absolutely cripples their bank account too. So that's number 1. Number 2 is education. Education, like college, makes me really mad when I hear about it and the situations it's put some people in. I know somebody that went to college for 4 years and got a degree, and the loans that they took out to get this job, to get that degree, their career that they went after doesn't pay them enough to make it possible to pretty much ever naturally pay off their student loans. So they are in debt for pretty much the rest of their life. That debt is so absurd. Student loan debt, I'd say the only thing worse than student loan debt is probably credit card debt, because credit card debt can become so insanely large that is genuinely impossible to ever pay it off. When you've got that APR, oh my gosh, you should just look it up. You should look up what some of the average APR is on credit cards. Reminder, APR is annual percentage rate. So if you owed $1,000 to a credit card company and they have a 10% APR, that means by the end of the year, you would owe them 1,100. And if I'm recalling right, a lot of credit cards are actually far above that. So avoid credit card debt. I'm going to talk about that also in a separate video because it deserves its own video. But we're talking about student loan debt right now, which is also really bad. Generally not that bad, but it's also really bad. The thing that really separates student loan debt from credit card debt is that when you go into student loan debt, you're consciously making that decision. You know you're going to go into debt. You can't pay that loan off right away or anywhere near in time before it starts growing. But credit card debt is sneaky. It sneaks up on you, and you don't realize that you spent more money than you have until the month's over. So you could end up spending way too much money, and now you're in a huge amount of debt all of a sudden. But anyways, education is great. Don't get me wrong. College can be great. Don't get me wrong. It just comes down to each individual person and your goals that you have in life and where you want to go in life. Sometimes a lot of people go to college because of your parents' expectations, or they just heard that that's what you always do when you graduate high school, when realistically, for the career that they wanted, they had no reason to go into college, and now they're in debt literally just because of expectations of their peers, their parents, and kind of the accepted cultural norm of just going to college after high school. It's terrible. It's really terrible. The next one's healthcare. Healthcare is also very expensive, specifically health insurance. So I just want to give you an idea of how expensive healthcare is. Healthcare is so expensive that most people actually don't have like any sort of health insurance, which, keep in mind, it's a legal requirement, and they just won't pay it. And instead, they'll take this government fine of $3,000 because that's usually cheaper. Imagine you make $30,000 in a year. That means health insurance on its own, if you don't actually pay for health insurance and you just take the fine, would be 10% of your yearly income. So then let's add this in with that housing rule of your housing is about 25% of your income. That means that just from these two things, just having a roof over your head and like a surgery is paid for if you break your arm or like a rib, or you got some internal bleeding if it gets really bad. Just those two things is already 35% of the money you make. 35, over a third of the money you make. That is absurd. So yeah, a lot of people just not pay it because actually getting health insurance is even more money. And also a lot of people pay even more than 25% just to keep a roof over their heads. Money and finances is so terrible. But anyways, healthcare, don't get me wrong, you probably should pay for health insurance, because if you get put in a position where you've got to get some absurdly expensive surgery, it's a lot nicer to have the health insurance, because instead of you being a couple $100,000, maybe even plus in debt to some hospital. So once again, it's like credit card debt or student loan debt. You could be in debt for the rest of your life, and that's just permanent stress that you can't get rid of. Instead, you're just paying for a down payment, which might just be a couple $1,000s, which, don't get me wrong, still sucks. Still sucks, but it's a lot better than a couple $100,000. So I am in no way encouraging not paying for health insurance, because that's the one downside. Something bad happens and you're pretty much screwed over. Then we have inflation. Inflation isn't super important compared to a lot of the other stuff on this list, especially because inflation, America's considered to have pretty big inflation at about 3% a year. So like I said, if you got 11% returns, which is the average of the S&P 500, inflation being 3% would make those returns actually 8. So it's kind of counteractive to your growth and then any sort of investments you have. But that inflation over time causes people to just be scared. They hear about it on the news so much. It's talked about by the government. Inflation's bad, but it's not that bad. But it does actually cause a lot of financial pressure. And then the last one that's really bad is comparisons. Comparison culture is so huge, and the majority of people have it. They just have this urge to compare themselves to other people. You know, we compare our bodies to other people's bodies. We compare the amount of money we have, the clothes we wear, the car we drive, the house we live in, the romantic partner they have, all of these things. We compare ourselves to other people all the time, and we judge people. We're like, ooh, yeah, I've got a lot nicer clothes than him, or you know, I'm a lot taller than him. Or it could be bad, like, oh, I've got a lot less money than him. I wish I had money like he did. Or, oh, he's so much taller than me. Oh my gosh, I wish I was that tall. It can be so, so bad for you. And everybody compares themselves to other people. It's a really deep topic, but a lot of people do this with money. They'll compare the amount of money they have to rich billionaires. It's like, dude, stop doing that. You'll never have as much money as them. And that's okay, because realistically, you don't need billions of dollars. The only reason they have that is because of like the company that they own. And that's just their net worth. They don't actually have that much money to spend, first off. And second off, like I said, you'll never actually need that much money. So stop comparing yourself. That's a really big cause of financial stress. You have this expectation that you just need to be a multimillionaire. You don't. You can actually retire off a relatively small amount of money when you invest in the right way. And I want people to stay hopeful, because there's no reason to have that much stress. So anyways, to kind of wrap this episode up a little bit, those are all the things that, in my opinion, cause overspending and cause all of that financial stress, the stress factor of money. So I'm going to recap that real quick. We have the consumption loop, which once again is financial insecurity, which leads to financial stress, which leads to, we're going to just say retail therapy, which leads to debt, and then finally leads to more insecurity. So there's our 5 things. And then that loops over time, and it progressively snowballs and gets worse. We've got lots of pressures to look successful, like our parents' expectations, our desire to outshine our peers, and social media. And then we have kind of just these big things in modern life that cause financial pressure. We've got housing, education, healthcare, inflation, and comparisons. All this stuff causes overspending because a lot of it creates incentives to spend a large amount of money. Like I said, I want to talk soon about how to kind of fix this, but for now, I just wanted to make people aware of it. But now, at our 4th episode, we have covered all 3 stress factors. So in next episode, you can expect a bit of a recap, and then I'll show you what we're going to end up doing.